town of the Mau Mau, Ras Kalonji. And as we like to say, what granny say, plant weed, what granny say, develop our own economy, what granny say, reparations by any means necessary. What granny say, free the land. What granny say, buy local. What granny say, support your own. What granny say, self-reliance. What granny say, self-respect. What granny say, stop the killing. We have a nation to build. What granny say, one people. What granny say, one aim. What granny say, one destiny. What granny say, one passport for African people. What granny say, one language for African people. What granny say, freedom or death. What granny say, just love one another and do whatever is positive to uplift the African people. As we continue, brothers and sisters, we just like to update certain things concerning African people. And as you know, this is the 100th anniversary of the birth of Brother Malcolm X. This is also the 100th anniversary of the birth of Brother Patrice Lumumba. And this is also the 100th anniversary, Earth Strong, our birthday, of Brother Franz Fernand from Guadeloupe or Martinique, whichever one you want to say. This is also, as we highlight certain things, this is also the 100th anniversary of Brother Malcolm X, right? And as we celebrate Malcolm, come up, listen this, hold the date, commemoration and celebration of Malcolm X 100. Malcolm X, Pan-Africanist and Internationalist, Friday, February 21st, 2025. Malcolm X and Fidel Castro, his historic meeting in Harlem, rally 4 p.m., Teresa Hotel, 2090 7th Avenue, 125th Street, from 6 p.m. Program and film, Pan-Africanism Live, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard Office Building, 2nd floor gallery. Monday, May 19, 2025, 12 p.m. rally, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Building. 1 p.m., 35th Annual Black Power March and Business Shutdown. That is in Harlem, New York. So, the December 12th movement, every and Malcolm X's birthday, the shutdown, there are the stores in Harlem to pay tribute to Brother Malcolm X. So, brothers and sisters who live in Harlem and listening to this program, Revelation of Struggle, you know, when that date comes up, you could go to Harlem and, you know what I mean, participate with the brothers and sisters there in Harlem. Now, brothers and sisters, as we highlight some more information, the French president says that we are not human beings. Right? He's saying basically, Emmanuel Macron, right, says ingratitude is a disease not transferable to humans. He's saying that Africans are not humans and we are ungrateful because we want to be free. Africans are ungrateful and ingratitude is a disrespect not transferable to humans. Now, as we move right along, as Brother Peter Tosh always says in his wonderful tune, no matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you're an African. And you know, last week we celebrated the 90th anniversary of the Portuguese Uprising. Now this program is dedicated to the Portuguese Uprising that took place, especially in Black History Month, February 1896. So this program is about we acknowledging the uprising of the 129th anniversary of the Portuguese riot Portuguese Uprising, sorry. Dr. King assassination, April 4th, 1968. This is the 57th year of his assassination. Dr. King's birthday is January 15th, 1929, the 96th year of his birth. This is also the 202nd anniversary of the Monroe Doctrine. President Monroe proclaimed the Monroe Doctrine back in 1823. And basically what the Monroe Doctrines refer to and what it means that the United States, right, control the whole Western world. He proclaimed that the whole Western world belongs to the United States. And no other foreign power, no other foreign power in terms of European power could threaten or have colonies in this part of the Western world. As we move right along, this St. Kitts Crown Colony government, this took place in 1882. This is the 143rd anniversary of Crown Colony government right here in St. Kitts. The Portuguese Uprising, as I said before, 1896. And this program is dedicated to the 129th anniversary of the Portuguese Uprising. The African Consciousness Movement is launching the movement for national unity because, brothers and sisters, our people have to unite, because in this age of geopolitics, you see what is happening with Mr. Trump in the White House. He's telling you basically like, he's going to take Canada. You understand? He's going to take back the Panama Canal. And he's going to take Mexico. A matter of fact, he already renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of the United States. So, the colonization of La Amiga, this is the 402nd anniversary of the colonization of La Amiga, right back in 1623 with so-called Sir Thomas Warner. As we get right into the program, brothers and sisters, we are giving you the information from Sir Probin in his book, 40 Years of Struggle, from the Portuguese Uprising to the Bucklers Uprising. 40 Years of Struggle, the birth of the St. Kitts labor movement. The aim of this work is to trace the history of the 40 difficult and troubled years in the island of St. Kitts, which fits so conveniently into the period between the Portuguese Uprising of 1896 and the Bucklers Uprising of 1935. This is a period of critical importance in the recent history of St. Kitts, for above all else, it witnessed the birth of the St. Kitts labor movement. During the 1890s, the St. Kitts sugar industry, like that of the entire West Indies, was experiencing a severe depression. Times were particularly hard for the workers. After weeks of smoldering resentment, occasioned by the refusal of a Portuguese sugar estate proprietor named Joaquim Ferraro to grant the workers on his estate of Needmas and Ponds in the Bastia Valley an increase of wages, disturbances broke out in the town of Bastia on 17 February 1896, and the shops of Portuguese merchants were set on fire and looted. The Portuguese Uprising was a form of blind protest against the condition of poverty and deprivation under which the workers labored. The sugar industry was pathetically dependent on the conditions of the weather and the vagaries of price on the international sugar market. During the period under review, the weather alternated between the extremes of drought and hurricanes. The year 1899 was a typical example There had been little rain during the first 6 months, but the island was then deluged by two disastrous hurricanes in August and September. The following year, 1900, was one of extreme drought. There were several other years of severe drought, notably 1912, 1920, 1923, and 1930. However, two devastating hurricanes also struck in 1924 and 1928, causing the loss of several lives. Disease and pests also afflicted both sugarcane and cotton from time to time. Rind fungus disease attacked the artillery or bourbon variety of cane around 1895, and then in 1923. The main variety, which had replaced it, was plagued by mosaic disease. The cotton crop of 1923 was ravaged by the pink boll worm. Following the establishment of the West Indian Department of Agriculture in 1898, sustained efforts were made to improve the technical efficiency of the sugar industry and to diversify agriculture generally. A time of bad feelings. There is no doubt that a bad feeling to some extent exists among the laboring population in the country districts of St. Kitts. From an official report, 1896. In February 1896, the workers on Joaquin Ferrara's sugar estate of Needmos and Greathead in the Bastia Valley went on strike in support of their demand for higher wages. Now, this was 40 years before the Portuguese Uprising, brothers and sisters. During the early 1880s, the rate paid for cutting a ton of cane was 8D, or pence, as my brethren informed me. Because last week I said that 8D, I didn't really know what it meant. But he said 8D means pence. After 1885, the employers reduced the rate by 25% from 8 pence to 6 pence. And there it remained for the next 10 years. Ferrara was a former Portuguese indentured worker who had migrated to St. Kitts from Madeira, probably in the 1850s. He was barely literate. Nevertheless, he did extremely well to the extent that by the 1880s, he owned several sugar estates in St. Kitts, in addition to substantial commercial interests in Bastia. Apart from Needmos and Greathead, 1,128 acres. Ferrara owned mounds and ponds, 778 acres. Fives, 326 acres. Farms, 593 acres. Chalk farms, 180 acres. And Vambel, 460 acres. In those days, all but the smallest estate possessed their own factory for making Muscovado sugar on the spot. In order to improve the efficiency of the sugar factory on his Needmos estate, Ferrara had installed large crushing mills and clarifying tanks which held 600 gallons instead of the previous 500. The workers contended that they would have to work harder to satisfy the requirements of the larger mills, so they demanded 1.5 pence more on their wages. They wanted to be paid according to the number of the clarifiers ground instead of the number of hogheads cured. Initially, Ferrara refused, but eventually he conceded an increase. As word of the wage increase spread, similar demands were made on estates throughout the island. As had been the case with Pans and Needmos, the demand for wage increase was reinforced by cane fires by day and night. The industrial atmosphere throughout the island quickly became very intense, whereas by mid-February, the reaping of the crop was usually in full swing. On this occasion, it had not even started. In Basseterre, there was a strike of boatmen and porters. They tried to prevent passengers from disembarking from the vessel which arrived in the roadstead. On Saturday, 15 February, there were disturbances in Dieppe, then a small country town from which sugar was shipped. There was a parade of men and women in the town. They openly declared that the water taxes would not be paid. The response to the demands of John R. Gold, a long-standing member of the Legislative Council, who resided in the area, armed police were sent to Dieppe under the command of the Inspector O. Farrell, the head of the police force. On Sunday, 16 February, there were cane fires at Stonefort Estate, 4 miles west of Basseterre. They were accompanied by disturbances involving some workers. There was a serious confrontation in which the manager of the estate fired on the crowd and wounded 3 women. He was arrested and marched off to the Old Road police station. In the hope of maintaining the peace in the Challengers Stoneford area, 1 sergeant and 3 men, all unarmed, were posted there for the night. As morning broke on Monday, 17 February, there was a sense of foreboding. Disorder had broken out in Dieppe and Challengers. There were persistent reports that striking workers from the country districts would be marching into Basseterre. A corporal and 6 men were dispatched from Basseterre in a westerly direction to stop the march and prevent the entry into Basseterre of a gang of strikers who were reported as coming in this direction. In any event, the police encountered no such gangs of strikers en route to Basseterre. When they reached Challengers village, they linked up with the officers who had been left in the village overnight. The police, still unarmed, came under attack from stone throwers. Eventually, the police retreated from Challengers village and returned to Basseterre. By mid-afternoon, the captain of the HMS Cardillo, which was in the Basseterre harbor, was prevailed upon to land a contingent of armed men to maintain law and order. A party of men from the Cardillo traveled down the coast to Old Road, where they disembarked and then marched back to Challengers village. By the time they got there, it was about 7 o'clock at night and the village was quiet. In the meantime, Basseterre was anything but quiet. Crowds of unemployed or strikers from the country districts were marching through the streets of Basseterre, accompanied by music from all sorts of instruments, including conch shells. As night fell upon Bastille, the street lamps were systematically smashed. Under cover of darkness, provision and liquor stores and liquor shops of the Portuguese merchants, principally in Newtown and Baker's Corner, were broken into and looted. Some business places were also set on fire. The St. Kitts Division of the Leeward Islands Police Force, comprised almost totally of locals and numbering about 100 men, was totally ineffective in quelling the disorder. The police in some cases sided with the striking workers. The division was under the command of an inspector, Mr. P. O'Farrell, who had arrived in St. Kitts from the United Kingdom only a few weeks before the riot occurred. The cavalry and artillery service had been abolished some years before. The intention was to replace it with a militia, but this never happened. In the circumstances, the local authorities had no choice but to call upon the imperial government for military assistance. Blue jackets were landed from HMS Cordelia, and in the process of suppressing the riots in Bastille, 5 persons were killed and many others wounded. The bitterness among the working population was explosive, and as a precautionary measure, either HMS Cordelia or another warship, HMS Tartar, remained in the Bastille roasted continuously between 17 February and 16 April 1896. The manager of Estridge Estate, Solomon Shelford, writing to the absentee proprietor of that estate who resided in England, gave this telegraphic account of events relating to the 1896 uprising. Terrible riots about higher wages. Marines landed from gunboats, fired on mob, killed 3, wounded several, cane fires everywhere, nothing to speak of at Estridge. Have granted demands for higher wages. Men came at me with cutlasses. Rural police joined mob. Only about a half a dozen working in the yard. Now, brothers and sisters, in this dispensation now, we're saying that our people don't uprise. But the reason that we're saying this is because we don't know or understand the history of our people here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Like every other territory within the Western Hemisphere where our people were enslaved, there were slaves uprising. And after slavery, there was uprising throughout the Western Hemisphere, everywhere our people were. But the reason why we don't know these things is because we don't know our history. And it wasn't taught to us. So, the main purpose of revelation of struggle past and present is to educate our people about the struggles of our enslaved ancestors and the working people here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, even after the ending of slavery, right? So, what I'm saying to our people, that is imperative and it is important for us to know our history, because I'm telling you, in this dispensation, they're going to be risings again. Because as the colonizers and the imperialists and the fascists, as they get more severe in terms of putting more pressure on our people, in terms of the economic ailment that is taking place at this very moment, where every time you go to the grocery store, there are increases in the goods in the grocery store based on inflation. Now, as I have always maintained that since COVID came on us, the reason why COVID came on us is because the capitalist political economy collapsed. Back, you could say, in 2020, because from 2019 coming into 2020, when the COVID came on us, the political economy of capitalism globally collapsed. That's why COVID was thrust upon us. And now what we are feeling now is the after effects of COVID. But our people don't understand. That's why the economy is so sluggish. It is not our fault. Because what happens is that the imperialists and the fascists, they like to say that we mismanage our economy. No. They like to put the blame on our people. The fact remains that the political economy of capitalism crashed, brothers and sisters. You understand? So what we are saying here basically, in order for people to move forward and develop themselves, we have to unite as a people. PAM and Labour divide, the NRP and CCM divide in Nevis. You understand? Them things have to be squashed. Our people have to speak with one voice. The people have to unite because that is the only solution to the pollution. But as we move on, brothers and sisters, trying to share some information, with our people, not only here in the Federation, but throughout the whole African world, that in this present moment, here in 2025, the 500 million Africans in the Western world, we are calling for the unification of the black nation. You understand, brothers and sisters? There is no other way that we could survive if we don't recognize ourselves as a nation. Because that's what we are. We were enslaved for 500 years. Right? Now we are so-called free. What is actually taking place, as Eric Prince has said, is that they're going to recolonize us. They want to put us back on the plantation. Because here at Revelation of Struggle Past and Present, you understand, we don't have a lack of analysis. What is happening amongst the leadership of the political directorate, not only here in the Federation of St. Nevis, but throughout the whole Western world where our people are, there's a paralysis of analysis. You understand? Now, if you have an ailment and you go to the doctor, you understand? He's going to have a proper diagnosis to understand, what is really affecting you. If you have whatever particular disease you have or whatever ailment that you have, you have to have a proper history, not only of the patient, but the patient's family. So he could come up with a proper diagnosis. So here at the Revelation of Struggle Past and Present, we have the proper diagnosis. We do not have a paralysis of analysis. And as we move forward, relating the information to you, brothers and sisters, we are saying, you understand, here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we are launching the movement for national unity. You understand? And the African consciousness movement is spearheading the movement for national unity. We need to come up with a national consciousness. And as we say here, what Granny says is nation time. So we're not only calling for the unification here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the unification of the OECS, the unification of CARICOM, you understand? And the unification of the Republic of New Africa. That's what we are. Because we are New Africans in the New World. We have developed a distinct culture and a particular way of life based on our enslavement here in the Western world. So what we are saying, what Granny said, free the land, it's time to establish the Republic of New Africa. And in previous programs, we'll show you where Brother Malcolm X called for that. We'll show you where Brother Marcus Garvey, You understand? UNIA and the African Communities League also call for that. And as Brother Peter Tosh said, no matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you're an African. Charges were brought against 159 persons in the magistrate court. 27 were sent to trial in the High Court. According to a contemporary report, the goal, I think I was saying basically the courthouse, was literally filled with persons convicted of rioting. As a direct consequence of the uprising, a volunteer force was established under law, enacted later in the same year. Steps were taken immediately to increase the size and improve the efficiency of the police force. The authorities were doubtful about the loyalty of the local members of the police force. Indeed, there were reports to the effect that the police were in sympathy with the strikers and that the police in the country districts had joined the uprising brothers and sisters. The Inspector General of the Leeward Islands Police Force had a plan which he felt sure would free the members from local entanglements in the future. Thus, he wrote, I promise with a view of increased the efficiency and usefulness of the police to periodically transfer throughout the colony men from various presidencies, taking care that few men will be serving in the island to which they belong. Presidencies refers to different islands like Montserrat, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua. Right back in the colonial era, these islands were referred to as presidencies. You understand? So we just want to make that clear to the listening audience. I'm going to read it again. I promise with a view to increase the efficiency and usefulness of the police to periodically transfer throughout the colony men from various presidencies, taking care that few men will be serving in the island to which they belong. This I have done to some extent in other presidencies, with the exception of the men stationed in St. Kitts and Nevis, as I have only lately returned from my first inspection in that presidency. Henceforth, it became the establishment policy that men of the Leeward Islands police force would preferably be posted away from their native island. Nevertheless, whenever there was a serious threat to the established political and economic order, as was deemed to be the case in January 1935, it was on the defense reserve of the defense force that the authorities would rely, comprised as it was of men drawn exclusively from the plantocracy. There was no reason to doubt that in any confrontation, the defense reserve would support the status quo and put down any challenge to the establishment. In the 1890s witnessed a continuation of the acute depression in sugar prices which had started around 1884. The following table indicates the average price paid for Muscovado sugar during the period 1880 to 1896. And you have the average price per ton paid for Sinkits Muscovado from 1880 to 1896. As we continue, brothers and sisters, these things are very important, because what we have to understand is that we have to base our analysis of the historical developments that took place basically in not only here in the Federation of Sinkits, but throughout the whole Western world where sugar was produced. Now, I just like to give you a quote here from the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Here's what he said on the whole question of education. Education is the medium by which a people are prepared for the creation of their own particular civilization and the advancement and glory of their own race. On the whole question of nationhood, which I talked about before, which we are saying that the Republic of New Africa is a nation, the 500 million Africans in the Western world. We comprise a nation because we all suffer, you understand, from the enslavement of the colonizer and the slave master. Nationhood is the only means by which modern civilization can completely protect itself. Independence of nationality, independence of government is the means of protecting not only the individual, but the group. Nationhood is the highest ideal of all peoples. Now, the Honorable Marcus Garvey also said, "Let Africa be our guiding star, our star of destiny." And as we continue, brothers and sisters, bringing you the information of our people's struggle right here in the Federation of Sinkits and Nevis, we continue. There were great variation in prices depending on the quality of the product and the market in which it was sold. For example, even though the price paid in Halifax, Nova Scotia, was the same as in New York, handling charges in Halifax were low, and payment was remitted to the shipper in Sinkits much more speedily. Further, whereas the customers in Halifax required no invoice on the entry of sugar, the difficulties in invoicing sugar for the American market were considerable, and failure to meet the requirements could lead to fines being inflicted on the exporter, even for accidental errors. The cause of the depression was directly related to competition from beet sugar, which was being produced in Germany, France, and elsewhere in continental Europe under a system of government bounties. This made it possible for beet sugar to be sold in the United Kingdom market below its actual cost of production. By contrast, the cost of producing a ton of Muscovado in Sinkits exceeded the price at which it was sold. Further, proximity to the United Kingdom gave European beet sugar producers an additional price advantage over West Indian cane sugar producers due to low freight charges. But apart from being cheaper, beet sugar had a reputation among refiners and consumers alike for being a better quality sugar than West Indian Muscovado sugar. It would be useful to recall here that the sugar industry of the West Indies had been beset by one crisis after another since emancipation in 1838. In pursuit of its policy of free trade, the United Kingdom had consistently reduced the duties charged on foreign and British colonial sugar until 1874, when all duties were removed. In the process of reducing duties, the United Kingdom had given preferential treatment to Muscovado sugar. As it turned out, the system of preference was more in the short-term interests of the United Kingdom sugar refining industry than to the long-term benefit of the producers of Muscovado in the West Indies. In the case of Sinkits, since there was no incentive for improving the quality of its sugar, by the 1880s, there was only one centrifugal mill situated at Brighton Estate, which was capable of producing crystallized sugar. Among the Sinkits products proudly exhibited at the Colonial and Indian Exhibition in London in 1886 were yellow and white crystal sugar from Brighton Estate, then owned by Mr. J.B. Adamson. Since sugar prices and profits were low, estate proprietors were hard put even to make ends meet, and were thus unlikely to accumulate surpluses or to raise the necessary capital to improve the efficiency of their mills. The fact remains that so long as there was a protected market for Muscovado, there was little or no inducement to produce a better quality of sugar. After 1874, when all duties on sugar were abolished, the attitude of the United Kingdom towards the West Indian sugar industry changed significantly. According to R.W. Beechey, by 1879, free trade principles in the United Kingdom were adopted in some section of the government with the full fervor of a religion, let alone a policy. There was little sympathy in the colonial office or elsewhere in governmental circles for the plight of the West Indian sugar producers. Now, basically, we like to refer to ourselves as West Indians, but I want to inform our people. The term West Indian came from the colonizers who came, the enslavers and colonizers who came to the Western world, especially here in the Caribbean region, and they refer to themselves as West Indians. That's why we are called West Indians. That's what they refer to themselves as. And then you had the West Indies cricket team. You understand? So what we are saying, brothers and sisters, we are not West Indians. We are Africans, you understand, who were stolen from Africa and brought to the Western world to produce wealth for the slave master and the colonizers and the imperialists. As we move right ahead, it was considered to be all their fault, further, that it would have a salutary effect if some of the inefficient West Indian producers were allowed to go to the wall. It was made very clear that the interests of the British consumer was the paramount concern of the British government, which had no intention of imposing countervailing duties. A government spokesman explained its position in this way. We must remember that in this country, the interest of the consumer is stronger than the interest of the producer. And with the bounties he gets, his sugar more cheaply than he would without them. I'm going to read that again. right? A government spokesman explained its position in this way. We must remember that in this country, the interest of the consumer is stronger than that of the interest of the producer. And with the bounties he gets his sugar more cheaply than he would without them. Lord Derby, the Secretary of State for the Colonies, made the observation in 1876 that the natural market of the West Indies was America, not Europe. So it was this shift to the United States market in the 1870s which saved the Sinkids West Indian sugar industry from utter ruin in the last 2 decades of the 19th century. By the 1900s, the West Indian by the 1900s, the West Indian share of the United Kingdom sugar market had fallen to a mere 2.5%. There had been long-standing trading links between the United States and St. Kitts and the rest of the Leeward Islands. For that matter, this trade had been hampered by the rigid adherence on the part of the United Kingdom to mercantilist principles. But when the Navigation Act was finally repealed in 1849, the final major obstacle to its growth was removed. The United States Leeward Island trade was complementary. The United States purchased sugar and molasses and sold to the island estate supplies and manufactured goods. Still happening today. You understand? So what I'm trying to show you, brothers and sisters, that these are not new. These relationships, right, in terms of shipping sugar produced here in the Federation to different parts of the world, and then food came in order, you know what I mean, to feed to the enslaved and to the general populace. So here we are talking about, centuries of these things happening. That's why we don't produce nothing here in the Federation, especially since we stopped producing sugar. Everything is imported. That's why the inflation is so high in this country. And not only that, the imperialist forces don't want us to produce nothing. You understand? So that's why we have to keep importing things. So we say no, as a nation, not only here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, but the 500 million Africans in the Republic of New Africa, we will have to start to develop these things in order to produce things for ourselves. The United States Leeward Islands trade was complementary. The United States purchased sugar and molasses and sold to the island estate supplies and manufactured goods. But more specifically, due to their proximity, the islands had a comparative cost advantage because of low freight charges and were able to compete fairly successfully with European beet sugar in the United States market. And best of all, there was a big demand for muscovado sugar in the United States and in Canada as well. Improvements in the communication and transportation system between the United States and the islands helped to foster trade. Prior to 1870, we are talking about 1870, American goods for the Leeward Islands were offloaded in Barbados and then transshipped to their final destinations. However, by 1872, the West Indian and Panama Telegraph Company had established telegraphic communication between the West Indian Islands themselves and between them and continental America. The West Indian and Panama Telegraph Company provides telegraph services at its office in Bastille, and messages were dispatched to the United States and other parts of the world. Initially, they were careless and incompetent. Nevertheless, telegraphic communications did give a fillip to trade. Now, it's coming on closing time, brothers and sisters. We're going to close off there for a minute. And as we continue informing you, you understand, about basically our history and our development here in the Federation of Singits and News and in the Western world in general, right? We're going to end with some quotes from the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. What Granny say? Love one another. What Granny say? Respect one another. What Granny say? One people, one aim, one destiny. What Marcus Garvey say? A people without knowledge of its past is like a tree without root. What Granny say? Africans unite. What Granny say? African unity. What Granny say? One African people. What Granny say? One African parliament. What Granny say? One African economy. What Granny say? One African passport. What Granny say? Reparations by any means necessary. Now, brothers and sisters, as we get closer, you understand, to shutdown time, we just like to give you some information in terms of the principle that we are dealing with. The Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And this is our guide for the liberation of our people. You understand? The 7 principles of Kwanzaa. There's a principle for every day of the week. Monday, Umoja means unity. To strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Umoja means staying together. That was Monday. Tuesday, Kuji Chagalia, self-determination. We should be a self-determining people. You understand? We can let the colonizer determine our destiny. Kuji Chagalia, self-determination. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Instead of being defined, named, and created for, and spoken for by others. Kuji Chagalia is saying who we are and who we will be, and not letting others say for us. Ujima, Wednesday. Collective work and responsibility. We have to work collectively and be responsible to each other, to build and maintain our community together, and make our sisters and brothers' problems our problems, and to solve our problems together. Ujima means working together and helping each other. That was Wednesday. Now Thursday, this is very important. Ujama, cooperative economics. We have to practice cooperative economics, and we have to establish cooperatives, because a lot of times people talk about we don't have any money. If all of us put $1 to each in a cooperative, we could do wonders, brothers and sisters. Ujama, cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. Ujama means buying from each other. Near purpose, right? This now is Friday. To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. We have to re-educate our people. I'm going to read that again. Near purpose. To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Near means near means making our people as great as they can be. Now, Kuumba, this is Saturday, creativity. We are creative people, and we have to re-establish that creativity amongst ourselves. To do always as much as we can, in the way we can, in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it. Kumba means thinking of ways to make our community better. That was Saturday. Now Sunday is faith, Imani. To believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. Imani means believing in ourselves and the worth of our people. Brothers and sisters, I hope that you enjoy this program, our second program here on Revelation of Struggle, Past and Present. And don't you forget, every Tuesday will be right here on Revelation of Struggle. All you have to do is to go on YouTube and click and search for Revelation of Struggle, Past and Present. Every Tuesday will be here informing you and giving you pertinent information in order to establish the Republic of New Africa here in the Western world. And we just want to highlight some other information to you where brother and comrade Leonard Peltier was pardoned by President Joe Biden, where he spent over 50 years in prison for defending the rights of the Native Americans in the United States. Brother and comrade Leonard Peltier spent 50 years in prison. He took up arms to defend the reservation on Wounded Knee, you know. And as we see what Trump is doing, how you could be an illegal alien and stolen land? You cannot be an illegal alien and stolen land, brothers and sisters. The United States was stolen from the Native American, just like here in the Federation of St. Kitts. All the native people, the Kalinagos, or what we call Caribbean Iraqs, were decimated and eliminated and married. Yeah. As we close out, brothers and sisters, as we were saying, Brother Leonard Peltier, comrade brother, and Brother Leonard Peltier, was pardoned by President Joe Biden. You understand? For defending the reservation at Wounded Knee, where he took up arms to defend the reservation where they said that he killed 2 FBI agents. We people got to understand his history. You cannot be an immigrant, you understand, and stolen land. No, we want to inform you also that the native people was liquidated here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. You understand? Where the colonizer, because remember St. Kitts was occupied by both France and England at the time, and they were fighting a war amongst themselves. And the seas fighting each other to liquidate the the natives right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The same thing happened throughout the Western world. There was over 500 million native people in the Western world. No, they are less now than 1 million in the Western world. So we're just letting you know, brothers and sisters, that is the history. You cannot be an illegal alien and stolen land. And Trump is flipping the script. He's calling these people criminals. He's the original criminal. He's a convicted felon. So as we close up, brothers and sisters, as we say every Tuesday night, we'll be here on Revelation of Struggle. Just go to YouTube and search for Revelation of Struggle every Tuesday from 8 to 9 p.m. Give thanks, one love, as we share relevant information with our listening audience. One love, give thanks. What Granny said, one people, one aim, one destiny. Irie.